UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping has been sharing his choice of who he thinks is the scariest man on the current UFC roster, and there will be very few dissenting voices. Bisping, who shocked the world back in 2016 when he dethroned Luke Rockhold for his middleweight title, has also recently been the subject of his own documentary. Today we're talking about who Bisping thinks is the scariest fight on the roster, so stay tuned. First up, let's jump straight in. In what will come as one of the least controversial views in recent times, Michael Bisping has revealed that he believes current heavyweight king Francis Ngannou is, in fact, the scariest fight on the current UFC roster. He singled out the Cameroonian's power and strength, which he believes is unrivaled throughout the division. On his YouTube channel recently, Englishman Bisping said, "A terrible bastard on the UFC list. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Oh, he hasn't been here very long. Do you want to quarrel with Francis Ngannou? Probably not, right?" The Count went on to explain that although Derrick Lewis has the most thorough record of all current UFC heavyweights, Nggannou has the ability and power to shut anyone's lights out for good. Bisping references what Nggannou did to Alistair Overeem back in 2017 when he delivered one of the scariest knockouts in UFC history. Reem was sent to the Shadow Realm with a one-way ticket in the very first round of their fight, and Bisping was right when he told of how terrifying that single punch was. It's probably the most famous punch in recent memory, and was also the one that made the heavyweight division sit up and take notice. Bisping, who now serves as an analyst on the UFC's in-house broadcasting team, was obviously impressed with the big man's performance against the former world champion kickboxer, and he, like the rest of us, is flat out terrified of the African. Who do you think is the scariest fighter on the roster? Mike Tyson has also had his say on the big man. Stay with us. Former baddest man on the planet, Iron Mike, recently claimed that Francis Ngannou's most recent fight purse, the $600,000 he earned for defeating Cyril Gane back in January, wouldn't have even been enough to cover his training camp when he was on top. Ngannou, although fighting with a pretty serious knee injury, retained his title after outpointing Gane, currently finds himself in a standoff with the UFC, and Tyson also made no bones about the fact that the guys at the top of the sport are underpaid. When asked to put himself in Ngannou's shoes and imagine being paid that amount for a fight in his heyday, Tyson replied, "Listen, that'd be my training expenses. People would pay me to do commercials and stuff, and I would make sure they paid me in advance, but I might not show up or something." Tyson's heyday was more than 3 decades ago, so it shows you how undervalued the top guys in the UFC are, and at one point in his career, he was banking more than $30 million per fight. He would regularly appear on pay-per-views, and is thought to have amassed around $400 million throughout his career, and his sparring partners would have needed to have been paid handsomely just to get in some practice rounds with the feared hitter. So $600,000 for a training camp sounds about right, really. What did you make of Iron Mike's comments? Let us know below. A quick update on Ngannou's injury recovery now. Stay tuned. Of course, the big man is currently sidelined thanks to a pretty nasty knee injury which required surgery, but Ngannou has recently provided an update to his progress, posting a video of himself walking without crutches, which has fans excited that they could potentially see him before the end of the year. Bisping's pick as UFC Scariest has seen an uptick in form after back-to-back losses to Stipe Miocic and Derrick Lewis a few years back. Those hiccups have seen him turn into a bit of a wrestling machine, which was one of the factors which enabled him to get past Gane, but that also came at a price as his knees were heavily impacted. It is thought if his recovery continues at its current rate of knots, then we could see the big Cameroonian appear at the last pay-per-view event of the year, which is exciting. Francis, who posted his update on Instagram, captioned the video of him walking unaided with the words, "Today I've been walking without crutches. Even though I'm scared, I've been doing it." We still don't know what the future holds for Francis, and he is still locked in his contract dispute with Dana White and the rest of the UFC brass, but hopefully we will see him do his thing at least one more time in the octagon before he moves on to a potential pro boxing fight, perhaps with a certain Tyson Fury. Next up, more Bisping talk. As we mentioned earlier, Michael the Count Bisping has recently been the subject of his very own documentary entitled Bisping, The Michael Bisping Story, which is, you guessed it, the story of his life. Bisping's story is a fairy tale, a rags-to-riches sort of affair, and a true underdog tale. The English fighter won the 3rd installment of The Ultimate Fighter, but was never really considered as a truly elite-level fighter until he shocked the world at the age of 38, winning the world title and cementing himself as a legend of the sport. He also holds the record as the winningest middleweight in UFC history. But all this pales in comparison to what he's had to give up to get there. You might not be aware that Bisping's last 10 fights or so in the UFC were fought with one eye, and he recently revealed on an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience that he would have to lie his way through eye tests to get the all clear to fight. He has since lost the eye and is the recipient of a pair of new prosthetic knees. Chinese. The story also chronicles his rough upbringing, which included a stint in prison and constantly being written off by fans and personalities within the sport. The film takes us through Bisping's life on the whole and gives fans a close-up of his biggest battles, both professional and personal. Have you seen the Michael Bisping story yet? Let us know below. Bisping has also had his say on Khamzat Chimaev next. Stay tuned. Another of the UFC's scariest fighters, Khamzat was out again this weekend in a 3-round war against number 2 ranked Gilbert Burns, and the pair delivered a fight for the ages. The scrap proved to be Khamzat's first big test, and after predicting he would walk through Burns, it didn't quite turn out that way. But Michael Bisping himself believes that the experience of going 3 rounds with someone the caliber of Burns will only serve Chimaev well going forward. The Count was speaking on his YouTube channel earlier this week and said, "I don't think anyone didn't enjoy that fight, and I think for Khamzat it was such a great fight for his development as a fighter, for his evolution as a fighter, which is probably fair. He isn't going to walk through everyone, right?" Bisping went on to explain that Khamzat probably thought he would steamroll Gilbert, but that's not quite how it works in the top 5 of any division. Bisping also referenced the fact that he's mangled everybody so far, and he probably thought that was going to happen again, which Bisping says is probably why he was sitting on the fence before the fight started, as if he was waiting for a bus. Bisping went on to say that it was good for him, because he will learn you don't just walk through everybody, and ultimately it will teach him that every fight is different. What did you guys make of Khamzat's performance against Gilbert? And finally, our man Mike has weighed in on Henry Cejudo. Triple C, as he calls himself, seems to be everywhere at the moment, and he has most recently called out featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski. Cejudo believes he has what it takes to become the UFC's first ever 3-weight champion, but Bisping thinks it might be a bit too much for him. Bisping, of course, was frequently dismissed throughout his career, so he should be the first to maybe put a bit more belief in Cejudo. But the Count believes ultimately size will play its part, saying, "Yes, great, dream big. The problem is you aren't big. You're not big enough to fight Alexander Volkanovski. I don't believe so. You were a 125er for a reason. You became the champion there. You stepped up to 135. That's only a 10-pound increase. Stepping up to 45, that's a 20-pound increase. And when you're a shorter guy, that's a large percent of your body weight. And we saw a picture of him recently looking a little chubby, a little out of shape. Yes, he can get heavy. He can probably get up to 160, who knows, even heavier. But is that your optimal weight? What do you make of Bisping's thoughts on Cejudo? Let us know below. As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to stop by next time for more fun and games. Also, why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video? Bye guys!